What's up, you guys? I'm back in with another video, and I know it's been some time since I've posted a video on this channel, perhaps a little bit over a week, but it is a lot of the talk of inside of Battle for Azeroth, so I'm excited to bring you guys this video. So this video should be a lot of fun, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the top 3 overall, just most overpowered classes inside of the World of Warcraft PvP meta. Now, inside of Beta for Azeroth, or the first few weeks of Battle for Azeroth, I should say, we saw a lot of just imbalance issues regarding the Azerite traits, which is a big kind of problem inside of World of Warcraft at the moment. But in the first few weeks, we kind of had to experience and go through and overcome certain traits just absolutely one-shotting people, and there is still like one on my mind with the Affliction Warlock Drain trait, which, you know, Warlocks are just in a weird spot as is. Affliction Warlocks specifically are in a very weird spot, so let them have their fun. But we did have a lot of other classes that were innately already strong, like Rogues with their Pistol Shot or Shuriken Toss one shot. We also had big Feral Druid bites that were just obliterating people's health bars. We had Windwalker Monks using their Rising Sun kick, which was just absolutely ridiculous. They'd walk over to you and hit you with one Rising Sun kick. It would do like 60k of your overall health pool. Those traits were so strong, but we have seen some nerfs to those traits, and now we're entering the new dawn of classes that are just innately overall way more powerful than some of the other classes, and I'm going to dive into those classes in today's video. Let's hop right into this video with my number 1 pick, and my number 1 pick and my number 2 pick are easily interchangeable. I know a lot of people at home are already guessing or might already know what I'm going to name in this list, but for the number 1, I'm going to go with Assassination Rogues. Now, Rogues in general have generally been hated by a lot of players in the World of Warcraft community for quite some time for a lot of reasons, but Rogues have always been a strong go-to class. Now, at the beginning of the expansion, we saw Outlaw being very strong, we saw Subtlety being very strong, and then not many people were playing Assassination, but those specs, those being Outlaw and Subtlety, have been nerfed over the past couple weeks, and no one was really playing Assassination, but all along, Assassination was very strong. Poison Bomb, System Shock, Vendetta is just such an insane combo, and a lot of people are just smorking their way up the ladder playing Assassination Rogue just due to the amount of damage. There's not much control when it comes to Assassination. It's almost played like a warrior, just sits on one target if it needs to, and just dishes out heavy damage. Now, in the past, we've seen Rogues have to revolve around setups, right? You'd have to be conscious or aware of when they have Vendetta and then Kingsbane, which is no longer a thing. But now every kidney shot by an Assassination Rogue is easily a kill attempt, and you don't have that many cooldowns to kind of prevent yourself from dying every single kidney shot. You might have a wall or a defensive cooldown on a 1 minute to 1 minute and 30-second cooldown, but outside of that, that's generally what every class has. Now, every kidney shot, I believe, is a 30-second cooldown. You can easily just fall over and flop. I believe the reason why Assassination Rogues are really strong at the moment, of course, Garrote is dealing a lot of damage, of course, Rupture is dealing a lot of damage, of course, their overall pressure is extremely high, but a lot of Rogues are opting to run Mark of Death or Mark for Death, and then they're using Mark for Death to get off a double Envenom go on their kidney shot, so they can get a kidney shot on the target. They use their Mutilates to build up a Envenom, and then they'll press Mark for Death to generate 5 combat points into another Envenom, and that can drop somebody from literally on Vendetta maybe 80 to 90% HP pull all the way down to 0 in one single kidney go, and you can do this very frequently. And with classes like Fire Mages seeing a lot of buffs recently, and other mage specs just doing really well inside of the arena meta, RMP or RMD, whatever comp you play, RM Pala is such a strong comp at the moment that it's really hard for me not to give them the number 1 spot. But if you are playing Rogue at the moment, I'm not hating on you whatsoever. Have your fun, enjoy the class or the spec while it lasts. I'm hoping Blizzard does not over nerf this class. I'm hoping Blizzard buffs or opts to buff Subtlety in some way so we can see a little bit more of a control based Rogue spec, but for now, Assassination is definitely the way to go. Now, hopping into number 2 for me is just absolutely the most ridiculous class I've ever seen inside of World of Warcraft. Now, it could be number 1, but you know, like I said, they're interchangeable. But for number 2, I'm going to go with Enhancement Shamans, and they have the number 2 spot for so many reasons. It's absolutely just mind-boggling to me that Blizzard has this class just the way it is, and on top of that, it recently got a 5% buff. Look! Enhancement damage by 5%! What? What does this even mean? How is Enhancement getting buffed by... They're already top damage every arena game. Now, as you can see in that clip, I was talking about this a couple weeks ago. I noticed right at the beginning of Battle for Azeroth that Enhancement Shamans were already innately so strong. Now, I know they got this buff due to their PvE performance, but Blizzard easily could have made a change where they only buffed them by 5% in terms of their damage when not fighting other players. But now they got a 5% buff across the board on overall damage, but it's not just the damage. Well, a lot of it is the damage in terms of why Enhancement Shamans are so strong at the moment. But not only do they have just insane damage output, but they also have such a wide variety in terms of their toolkit. Number one, they have things like grounding, they have things like Earth Shield, they have things like Tremor Totem, they have Hex, they have Purge, and on top of that, the biggest problem I would say is they have these instant off heals that are healing for like at the level of any other healer. They're instant off heals as enhancement, which they've had in the past, and there was a decent amount of off healing in Legion, but in Battle for Azeroth, each heal is like 20% of somebody's overall health pool.
Find the penance and top himself off. So far, making movie stabilized.
Z-Pi caught in a stun lock. Looney using Tranquility around the corner to try and top him. Gets caught in a blind with no trinkets. He trinketed Sap in the crowd control chain earlier instead of just automatically trinketing the blind. Now he's set far behind. They managed to pull Astral Shift, but not.
And if you're consistently attacking a target, you're generating Maelstrom, and your Maelstrom is responsible in terms of also your mana, but your Maelstrom is responsible for just off-healing a target. So when having things like Earth Shield, grounding, Tremor to get your allies out of a fear, and then on top of that having things like Ghost Wolf, and then your 1 minute and 30-second wall, and having just instant off heals that you can spam on yourself that you don't have to cast, this makes the class innately and extremely broken in my mind. This class is by far, in my mind, the most complete class out of any class inside of World of Warcraft in terms of their toolkit. Their damage output is by far probably the highest, and they're also healing for the most out of any hybrid class, and almost healing for more than some of the healers inside of World of Warcraft. So for number 2, it's a no-brainer. If you're playing an Enhancement Shaman, I'm not hating, man. Have your fun, enjoy the class, take advantage of this time. I'm seeing a lot of Enhancement Shamans just boost up the ladder right now just based on their performance inside of World of Warcraft PvP. I'm hoping we get to see some changes in the future. I'm hoping they opt to take that time to kind of tone down the healing, tone down the toolkit of Enhancement Shamans, and then probably put that attention and effort into some of the other classes. But for now, Enhancement Shamans are definitely one of the most broken classes inside of World of Warcraft. Now for number 3, I'm going to have some fun with this one. There's obviously a lot of classes that are very strong. I already named the top 2, in my opinion, strongest classes inside of World of Warcraft PvP. But for number 3, I was thinking about giving it to Fire Mages. Fire Mages recently got a buff along with Feral Druids and all of the classes that were already performing very well in terms of PvP, and all of those tunings were towards PvE, but because Blizzard didn't make it only applied to PvE, it affects PvP as well. But even though Fire Mages are always, or mages in general, are always in these top lists, they're always performing decently well. So I'm gonna have fun with this one, and I'm gonna give number 3 to Shadow Priest. Now when I say Shadow Priest, I do not want Blizzard to nerf Shadow Priest. I actually think there's a lot of fundamental problems with Shadow Priest. Now at the beginning of the expansion, Shadow Priest, everyone thought they were a meme, just like Warlocks. You can see Snut's reaction here.
No.
Wall?
No, please! This fucking game is so fucking bad, man! Fuck!
Now, as you can see by that clip there, Snuts is not very happy with the current state of Warlocks, and a lot of players are kind of clumping Warlocks and Shadow Priests into the same boat, saying they were not very viable inside of World of Warcraft PvP. Now, Shadow Priests, on the other hand, had a really great toolkit, but they just took so much damage, and they weren't dealing a lot of damage, so they felt quite useless. However, WizK, probably the best Shadow Priest we have right now in World of Warcraft, came up with a very neat spec that takes advantage of Edge of Insanity. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Edge of Insanity, it is basically a talent that you take that allows you, or forces you honestly, to stay at full insanity and never go into void form. But on the plus, or on the upside, when you stay at full insanity and never enter void form, Edge of Insanity gives you a flat 20% damage reduction to all abilities. So Shadow Priests in the past were very squishy, right? You'd see a Shadow Priest and just, basic common knowledge, you would go right after that Shadow Priest and try and run them into the ground. However, this is no longer the case. Shadow Priests are really like immortal gods. If they never go into void form and they can get off or get to 100% or even 65% with Legacy of the Void insanity, that person is going to be taking 20% less damage. And with Disperse and things like Life Swap, you can innately just never die, and a lot of players are now opting to not even attack Shadow Priest, and this allows Shadow Priest to really take advantage of their damage output and allows them to really take advantage of their toolkit, having things now like Life Grip. You also have Silence or Psychic Horror, or Shortened Silence if you spec into it. You have Fear. There are so many things that Shadow Priests do well to support their team and make their team innately tanky. And you're seeing Shadow Priests in a lot of tournament play. They are doing very well. However, like I said, I'm not asking for a Shadow Priest nerf. I'd actually like to see Blizzard kind of rework Shadow Priest in a way where they stay that way. They stay very strong. I want to see them just rework altogether Void Form. You never enter Void Form, and that's part of your class. Void Form is part of the new Shadow Priest toolkit that we had in Legion. You go into Void Form and you deal a lot extra damage, but a lot of players, including WizK himself, are saying that it's not even worth going into Void Form because the damage increase isn't that high. And on top of that, you just take a lot of damage, players immediately swap onto you, and it feels kind of bad to never enter or not even dabble in part of your toolkit just because you don't want to die. But on the plus side, at least with this new build, Shadow Priests are doing very well. You're seeing them in a lot of tournament play. You're seeing things like Shadow Priest Enhance, no surprise. You're seeing comps like Shadow Priest Survival Hunter, Shadow Priest Windwalker. I've even seen things like Shadow Priest, obviously Rogue. That is one of the most well-performing comps right now in the game, and the Move or the Ghostu crew is definitely taking advantage of that comp, and they're just an all-around well-rounded class, and I'm very excited for Shadow Priest players, as I know they've had kind of a rough time in previous expansions. But those are just my top 3 picks, you guys. I'm interested to hear your top 3 picks in the comment section below. And sorry I have not been posting videos multiple times per week. To be quite honest, you guys, I'm kind of bored of making videos, and even sometimes streaming. I just get tired of doing the same thing over and over again. It feels a little repetitive. Editing is very tedious, but I do make them because I love the comments in these videos. I love getting thumbs up. Obviously, it makes me feel good. And for all of you guys that come from my videos into my stream, it does make me feel very good and keeps me going and keeps me making videos for the World of Warcraft PvP community. But that's gonna be this video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to give the video a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments about my picks or anything like that, you can leave those in the comment section below, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Try to be on my Twitch live stream where I answer all of your guys' questions in depth, and I love to see your faces. Well, kind of see your faces, sort of. Do not forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.